Your family is meant to be a domestic church, a church in the home, right? It's supposed to be a place of spiritual growth and support for every member of your household. And this is really at the heart of those promises that you're going to make in this rite of baptism that really echo promises that you already made in the rite of marriage, right? So from the rite of marriage, we're all asked this question: will you accept children lovingly from God and bring them up in according to the law of Christ and his church? And we all say yes, right? And then later on in the nuptial blessing, the priest or the deacon prays over us as couples, and he says, help them to create a home together and give them children to be formed by the gospel and to have a place in your family. And then we're reminded about this in the rite of baptism in two different places, right? So these promises that we make in baptism, the priest or the deacon is going to ask us, you have asked to have your child baptized. In doing so, you are accepting the responsibility of training him or her in the practice of the faith. It'll be your duty to bring him or her up to keep God's commandments as Christ taught us by loving God and our neighbor. Do you clearly understand what you're about to undertake? And we all say yes. We don't have any idea what we're about to undertake, right? Raising a child is a difficult thing. But the question is, are you intending to do this thing, right? And we all say yes. We don't have any idea what we're doing. And then they'll ask us again, on your part, you must make it your constant care to bring him or her up in the practice of the faith. See to it that the divine life which God gives him or her today is kept free from the poison of sin to always grow stronger in his or her heart. If your faith makes you ready to receive this responsibility, renew now your own baptismal promises. And then we go into a renewal of baptismal promises. Now, I don't know about you, but I've got 5 kiddos. It's not an easy thing raising them. My wife and I have these ideas ahead of time about how we're going to raise our kids, and then you get faced with a real child in the real world, and sometimes that looks very different than what you anticipated. There is no instructional manual. Wouldn't it be great if God gave us an instruction manual for how to raise our kids in the faith? I would propose to you that he actually did, right? It's in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in this book of Deuteronomy. I want to read you something briefly from Deuteronomy chapter 6, just to give you a little bit of context, because we're probably not all Bible scholars. When you hear Deuteronomy, you might not know what's going on, right? So we all are familiar with Israel being enslaved in Egypt for a long, long time. Moses leads them out of slavery in Egypt. They go to Mount Sinai, where they become God's chosen people. They won't roam around the desert for 40 years, being formed as God's people. And then they get just outside the promised land. Moses is about to die. He's about to send them across the Jordan River under Joshua's charge. And Moses stops, and he takes some time to remind them, what did God do for us? And what did we all promise we were going to do? And in the course of that, reminding Israel of who they are as God's children, Moses says this from Deuteronomy chapter 6, starting in verse 4. He says, hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Therefore you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Take to heart these words which I enjoin on you today. That part probably sounds familiar, right? Think of in the Gospels, we've heard when the scribes and the Pharisees asked Jesus, what's the most important law in the Old Testament, right? There's over 600 laws in the Old Testament. They're asking him, what's the most important? Jesus says this, love God with your whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. But then it goes on, and this is the important part for us as parents, I think. Right, he says, take to heart these words which I enjoin on you today. Drill them into your children. Speak of them at home and abroad, whether you're busy or at rest. Bind them at your wrists as a sign, and let them be as a pendant on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your houses and on your gates. Right, so what is God saying here? The first thing, most important thing about being a Christian parent is God has got to be the number one priority in my own life. Right, I've got to love the Lord my God with my whole heart, soul, mind, and strength before I can ever hope to pass that on to my children. Right, and then after that, what are the practical things that God gives here? Right, he tells us, drill them into your children. Does that mean that you need to memorize catechism questions and answers and all that sort of stuff? No, you don't have to do that. You're welcome to. We've got lots of families in this community that do that, and it's a wonderful and a holy thing. That's not necessarily what God's saying. But what he is saying is, we need to constantly remind our children that God is important to us. And tell them that with our words and our actions, right? He tells us to speak of these things, whether we're at home or abroad, whether we're busy or at rest. God knew we were going to be busy. He knew things were going to come up that's going to make it hard for us to keep our family prayer rituals up. He tells us whether you're at home or abroad, right? Whether you're home or somewhere else, whether you're on vacation, whether you're at home, always remind your kids and act as if God is important in our lives. That means there's no vacation from God, right? Whether you're busy or at rest, speak of them. Bind them on your wrists as a sign and let them be as a pendant on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your houses. What is God saying here? It sounds to me like he's suggesting wearing religious jewelry of some sort. I don't think that's a direct command from God by any stretch, but it's a good suggestion, right? I wear a chain to remind me I am God's, and God is supposed to be important to me. I've got little crucifixes and things on my keychains, especially at work, to remind me, especially while I'm driving, I am God's child, and I should act like it while I'm driving through traffic and not scream and yell at the people around me, even if it's only in my head, right? I have signs in my office, by my phone, by my computer especially, to remind me I am God's child and I need to act like it. Right? You can Google this on your own, but there's all sorts of suggestions about how to decorate your house to remind you when you walk into that room, maybe it's the nursery where your kid is up screaming in the middle of the night, have some sort of image there to remind you of the merciful Father, right? Our merciful Father God. Or for my kids, since we've got older kiddos, in the playroom, I need some sort of reminder there when I go in there to mirror God's justice. I also need to mirror God's mercy. Right? So these visible reminders, because we're human beings, we're body-soul composites. It's that sacramental character, right? God communicates to us through the sensate things. We need physical, sensible, tangible reminders that we're God's children and that we're a Christian family and that we're trying our best to teach our kids to love God with their whole heart, soul, mind, and strength, even when we mess up as parents, because you're going to do it. Right? You're not going to be a perfect Christian mom or dad. That's not the point. We want to strive for perfection, but we're all going to fall short, and God understands that, and he's patient with that, and he loves us anyway, right? So lots of different cool ideas there that God gives us for how we can live out these baptismal promises. And wouldn't you know it, modern science verifies a lot of what God told us thousands of years ago in that book of Deuteronomy. We don't have time to go through all of it now. There's a handout linked in this video that says science says go to Mass every weekend, right? There's a growing mountain of research that says the best thing you could do for your children, for your children and your family, humanly speaking, is to be a religiously involved household. Ignore the fact that there's going to be an extremely awesome benefit to knowing your Creator as a person and knowing that you were built on purpose for a mission and that God wants to support you in that and send you out to transform the world. Separate all of that for a second and just think humanly speaking. There are measurable human benefits to being a religiously involved household. Right, there's this awesome thing called the National Study of Youth and Religion, where it tried to study, is there any measurable benefit of religious involvement? And so they surveyed families of all stripes from all over the country, and they came back to the same families 10, 20, 30 years later and asked them the same questions. And what they found was this: religiously involved households in general tend to have happier marriages, better parent-child relationships, kids exhibit less risk behaviors, better social adjustment, better verbal scores, especially among girls, better academic scores. Sign me up, right? The million-dollar question is, what were their indicators of a religiously involved household? It's actually quite simple. It really boils down to three things: regular weekend Mass attendance, regular family prayer, and regular family faith conversations. And that was it. That's not too hard. Regular weekend Mass attendance. I would encourage you, if you are a once-a-year Catholic family, that is a good and a holy thing, and the research proves it. Keep it up. We have Mass every weekend. I encourage you to try it twice a year. If you go twice a year, that is a good and a holy thing. I'm not here to bash you for doing that. Keep it up. We have Mass every weekend. I encourage you to try it a couple times more a year. If you go once a month, that's a good and a holy thing. Keep it up for your family. We have Mass every weekend. I encourage you to try it twice a month. Right? Whatever you're doing, I encourage you to try just moving one more step towards perfection. Don't try to jump to perfection right away necessarily. That's a big cultural change for your family. We love you where you are. Let's take the next step together. If you go to Mass every single weekend, every Sunday, that's a good and holy thing. Great. There's more you can do too. There's more my family can do as well. Right? But keep it up. It's a good and a holy thing. Regular family prayer doesn't have to be that you have a family holy hour and you all go into ecstatic, you levitate and you have these awesome mystical experiences. If you do that, great. Regular family prayer, when you got a little baby at home, could just be prayer before meals and at bedtime. Those are our big moments to seize as Christian parents, is mealtime and bedtime. Especially bedtime, because I'm sure you've read the research where you need to create some sort of routine for this little guy, little gal, so they can get to sleep. Right? You can use all the prayer rituals of our faith to be involved in that bedtime routine. Right? It can be a simple, now I lay me down to sleep. It could be praying a rosary. You might sing to your kids to sleep. Sing them some hymns. Sing them some prayer songs. Get a CD or an MP3. Download an album off of iTunes of scriptural lullabies. There's so many good things out there. All the research that shows that reading to your children, even in utero, is good for them also applies to praying with them and reading Bible stories with them and reading and reciting traditional Catholic prayers with them. They're gaining verbal competence, and they're picking up on some of the vocabulary of the faith from the youngest possible ages. Don't deprive your children of this precious gift. Pray with them now, even if it's just a simple rote prayer before bed. Regular family faith conversations. It doesn't have to be deep theological conversation about, oh, God is a Trinitarian God. That means he's three persons, but only one God, as defined by the Council of Blah. No, you don't have to do that. Regular family faith conversation can be as simple as, what do you think God is doing in our family right now? What do you think God wants from us today? You went to Mass this weekend, I hope, right? What did God say to us through the readings? What was interesting about Mass today? What stuck out to you? What struck you as interesting or caused you to question? That's a faith conversation. It's just engaging in the faith topic. It doesn't have to be the super deep conversation. It might get there eventually, but that's not where it has to start. That's where it can go to, right? So there's these three simple things that are really, really important for us as Christian parents. Weekend Mass, family prayer time, and family faith conversations. We need to seize those opportunities to give our kids this precious gift of faith. Right? And you're not alone on this. This parish wants to support you in this task. That is my job, is to help you guys grow as a Christian family. I would love to talk with you about what kind of family prayer rituals can we do. We've got a library here. I can give you all sorts of resources of things you can take home and use at home and try out. And if it doesn't work, give it back and we'll try something else. I can recommend all sorts of things for you. We've got lots of resources at this parish. We've got faith formation programming from birth. Right? We have awesome programs called Making Music Praying Twice, which is a music formation class for newborns up through age 5. We've got Infant and Toddlers for Jesus in the Beaver Valley, which is for newborns. And then we've got things continue like that. The point of these programs is to start introducing faith concepts in an age-appropriate way, but also to give parents a support group, because you can't do this alone and you shouldn't try. The godparents you choose are supposed to help you raise your child in the faith. So it's worth thinking about, who are we considering, or have we already asked maybe, to be the godparents, and are they up to the task, right? So a godparent should be someone who is going to come forward and say, have you been getting to Mass? Do you need me to help you? Can I watch the baby or go to Mass with you with the baby so someone else can hold on to this little guy while you can pay attention for a minute at Mass? Are you guys praying as a family? Can I help you with that? Can I reach out to the parish and ask for help and support in some way? A godparent doesn't necessarily have to be a super saint, although if you know one, that's a great option for a godparent. But they need to be someone who's willing to engage and help you in this task, and they should, at the very minimum, pray for your family and especially for their godkid. Now, lots of folks will ask us, I don't know anybody that fits that bill. I don't know, what do I do if I can't find a godparent? I would encourage you to think and pray hard about who you want your godparents to be. I understand all the family pressures of it's so-and-so's turn because they haven't had a godchild yet. I get all of that. At the bare minimum, as long as your godparents can get the paperwork saying they're eligible to be a godparent, then they can be a godparent. Most of us don't want to settle for the bare minimum for our children, though. So here's what I'd recommend. If you've got a brother or a sister or a cousin or aunt or uncle or whoever, who it's their turn to be the godparent and you feel like you're stuck with them, here's what you can do. You tell them, I want you to be my child's godfather or godmother, but I'm going to need you to step up your game. I need you to actually do the role. You've got to be going to Mass every Sunday. You've got to be praying. You've got to pray for our child and for our family. And if you're willing to do that, then yeah, you can be the godparent. If you need help, if you decide, you know what, we really just don't know anybody who can do this and we need somebody, reach out to the parish, reach out to me, and we can help you. We can pair you up with someone who's at the very least going to be happy to pray for you and your family and to check in with you on a regular basis. We can help you with that. So once this video ends, I invite you to talk with each other about who are you considering as godparents, and do you feel like they're up to the task?